Hello and welcome. This is Notibot Yenji. Tonight, we'll be bringing you the latest developments in the escalating Middle East crisis. The United States, European Union, and Iran are locked in a tense standoff, with energy prices soaring and the threat of war hanging in the balance. We'll also explore the implications of a potential war on the global energy market and its potential impact on the world economy. Our top stories include the EU's response to the Ukraine crisis and a surprising shift in the US's stance on the Iran conflict. As the European Union grapples with the escalating energy crisis, leaders are now weighing their strategy to address Ukraine's pivotal role in the situation. The European Union is re-examining a set of energy measures implemented after Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine in an effort to mitigate a recent surge in energy prices. This move comes as tensions between Iran and a coalition of Western nations escalate, sparking concerns over the global energy market. In March 2022, the EU introduced a range of measures aimed at reducing its dependence on Russian energy, including a plan to phase out its reliance on Russian gas by 2030. These measures included a cap on the price of Russian gas, a ban on imports of Russian oil, and increased investment in renewable energy. Now, as the EU grapples with a fresh price shock tied to the Iran crisis, officials are considering reopening these energy measures to stabilize energy markets. The crisis in Iran has led to a sharp increase in oil prices, which in turn has driven up energy costs across Europe. The EU's energy chief, Kadri Simpson, said that the bloc would need to take swift action to address the energy crisis. "We are looking at all options to make sure that European citizens and businesses are protected from the impacts of the crisis," she stated. The EU's decision on whether to reopen the energy measures is expected to be made in the coming days, with key stakeholders set to meet in the coming week. The move is seen as a key test of the EU's ability to respond to the Iran crisis and mitigate its impact on European energy markets. As tensions between Iran and the West continue to escalate, a potentially game-changing development in the Middle East has emerged in the wake of recent talks. The White House has signaled its willingness to end the military operation against Iran without reopening the Strait of Hormuz, a crucial waterway for global oil shipments. According to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, ensuring safe passage for oil tankers through the Strait is not one of President Donald Trump's core objectives for the operation. The U.S. and Israel launched their military strikes in late February to destroy Iran's navy, dismantle its missile and drone infrastructure, weaken its proxies in the region, and prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. Despite these efforts, Iran's military has continued to menace merchant ships moving through the Strait, cutting off oil shipments and driving up the price of crude oil on the global market. Iran allowed some ships to pass through the Strait in late March, after intense diplomacy from the U.S. However, the prospect of Iran continuing to exert greater control over the narrow waterway could make it one of the lasting legacies of the conflict. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated that the Strait of Hormuz would reopen one way or another after the military operation was over, implying that Iran would need to agree to abide by international law and not block the strait. The situation highlights the complexities of the conflict and the potential risks of a prolonged stalemate. The U.S. and its allies will need to carefully weigh their options and consider the implications of any potential agreement or outcome. For now, it remains to be seen whether the U.S. will declare victory in Iran and end the war, even if Iran continues to exert control over the Strait of Hormuz. Following tensions between Iran and the European Union over the conflict in Ukraine, President Ebrahim Raisi has spoken out against EU intervention. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has warned that any external intervention in the ongoing war with the U.S. and Israel would have serious consequences. In a phone call with European Council President Antonio Costa, Pezeshkian criticized Europe's stance on the U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran, calling it inconsistent with its human rights claims. He reiterated that Iran remains committed to defending itself and blamed regional instability on actions by the U.S. and Israel, including tensions in the Strait of Hormuz. Tehran has maintained effective control of the Strait of Hormuz since early March, restricting the flow of energy products carrying vessels. The U.S. and Israel have maintained an air offensive on Iran since February 28, killing over 1,340 people, including then Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Iran has retaliated with drone and missile strikes targeting Israel, along with Jordan, Iraq, and Gulf countries hosting U.S. military assets, causing casualties and damage to infrastructure while disrupting global markets and aviation. The situation has significant implications for global stability, with the U.S. and its allies warning of the need for de-escalation and a return to diplomatic solutions. The European Union has expressed concern over the war's global impact, but has been criticized for its silence on the U.S.-Israeli strikes. Pezeshkian's comments have highlighted the deepening divisions between Iran and the West, with tensions escalating in the Middle East. The international community is watching closely to see how the situation unfolds, with many fearing a broader conflict. As tensions in the Middle East continue to escalate, a striking statement from a high-ranking U.S. official has sent shockwaves around the globe. According to a report by the New York Post, citing a phone interview with U.S. President Donald Trump, the U.S. war in Iran is expected to come to an end much longer from now. Trump stated that the U.S. is obliterating the country, leaving it with no strength, and that the Strait of Hormuz will reopen automatically once U.S. forces leave. The Strait of Hormuz is a critical waterway that controls the flow of oil and is a significant economic concern for countries such as the U.S. and China. Trump's comments suggest that he believes other countries will take over the responsibility of securing the strait, and that it will open up automatically once U.S. forces are no longer present. When asked by the New York Post if he was willing to end the war without reopening the strait, Trump replied that he didn't think about it, and that his sole function was to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. He stated that this goal has been achieved, and that the strait will automatically open when U.S. forces leave. The comments from Trump come as the U.S. continues to conduct military operations in Iran, with reports of ongoing airstrikes and drone strikes. The situation remains volatile, with tensions between the U.S. and Iran continuing to escalate. The comments from Trump suggest that the U.S. may be drawing down its military presence in the region, but it remains to be seen what the long-term consequences of this will be. As tensions with the West escalate, Iran is bracing for a potential new front, the Strait of Hormuz, a waterway that could decide the fate of the country. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait, known as the Gate of Tears, is a vital waterway that connects the Mediterranean Sea to the Indian Ocean. Its strategic location makes it a critical choke point for global shipping, with over 50,000 vessels passing through it every year. The strait is about 30 kilometers wide at its narrowest point, and its treacherous sailing conditions have made it a significant challenge for mariners. On March 28th, the Houthis, a military group aligned with Iran, entered the war in Yemen, launching missiles towards Israel for the first time since the conflict began. This move has significant implications for the region, as it could lead to a broader conflict involving Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United States. The Houthis have previously attacked shipping in the Red Sea, causing major disruptions in 2023 and 2024. Bloomberg reports that Iran has approached the Houthis to prepare for a similar campaign, which could further escalate tensions in the region. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait is a critical link between the Mediterranean Sea and the Indian Ocean, allowing ships to bypass the southern tip of Africa. This has significant economic implications, as it reduces travel time and fuel costs for oil tankers and other vessels. The disruption of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait could have severe consequences for the global economy. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, a trip between the Arabian Sea and the Mediterranean Sea via the Red Sea takes 12,000 kilometers, compared to over 20,000 kilometers if a ship travels south around Africa. This makes the Bab el-Mandeb Strait a vital artery for global trade, and any disruption to it could have far-reaching consequences for the world economy. As tensions between Russia and Iran continue to escalate, a new challenge is emerging for Russian President Vladimir Putin, one that threatens his regional influence. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine has taken a complex turn, with some speculating that the U.S.-Israeli war against Iran may benefit Russia. As the U.S. shifts its attention to the Middle East, it's argued that this distraction makes it easier for Vladimir Putin to wage his war in Ukraine. The surge in oil prices has enriched the Kremlin's coffers, with the temporary lifting of sanctions on Russian oil being a notable indication of Russia's potential gains. However, a closer examination reveals a more nuanced picture. The assertive U.S. foreign policy has exposed Russia's weakness and growing irrelevance. Just as Moscow was unable to save its client, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, from the Syrian civil war, Russia's influence in Ukraine is also being eroded. The US has been actively working to strengthen Ukraine's military capabilities, while also pressuring Russia to withdraw its troops from the conflict zone. The situation is further complicated by the involvement of other regional players, including Iran and Turkey. Iran's support for Russian forces in Ukraine is seen as a strategic move to counter US influence in the region, while Turkey's willingness to participate in peace talks has raised hopes for a potential ceasefire. Despite the complexities, one thing is clear. The US-Israeli war against Iran is having far-reaching consequences for Russia's position in Ukraine. As the situation continues to unfold, it remains to be seen whether Russia's interest will ultimately be served by the distraction of the US-Israeli war. That's all for today's news recap. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for the latest news updates and in-depth analysis. Stay informed, stay ahead. We'll be back with more news and updates soon. Until then, good night, and we'll be in touch.